Okay, so 3 days into the project and I finally finished my 62 small M units and my 62 big center spike units. So now it's time to put them together. So I've sorted them so that I have the M units that I like with the center spike units. So now it's time to put these together with these. So what you want to do is remove the papers from the back of the big units, leave the papers on the small units, and we will do a curved piecing. It's good when you're taking off the papers to start with the last section you put on first. It'll come off easier. And as long as you've had small enough stitches, it should rip right off. It's as easy as that. They come right off. And then I make sure I put it with the piece that's going to go with it and put it in a pile. It's a good project for your kids to do, or friends that come to visit and they don't quilt. Ooh, I like that. You might want to do yourself a favor and take one of your center spike units before you finish sewing them all and try to remove the papers just to see how easy they come off. If the papers don't come off this easy, then you might want to do yourself a favor and tighten up your stitch length, make it a little smaller, which is a lower number. On a modern machine. And on the featherweight, it's the highest it'll go, like a 30. But I find when it's set around 25, it works really well on a featherweight. And then on these ancient hand crank machines, there's no number setting, but you can put it in the smallest possible space and see if it'll stitch nicely and be able to take the papers off. Now I've got this pile I'm working on is in sets of 2. That's another thing you should consider when you're stacking up your fabrics, is how many of each block you want. And when you look at the picture of the Prickly Pear quilt, there are 7 full bursts, center spike bursts, so those take 4 blocks. So you need 7 sets of 4. And there are 8 sets of 3 blocks. And there are 5 sets of 2 blocks. If you want it to be more random than that, then don't worry about how many sets of each. And just have fun with it. So I'm going to put these 2 together, and the first step to do that is obviously taking off the papers. From the big piece, you leave the papers on the small piece. Now I'm going to want to trim away some of the bulk from these seams on this curve, so I'm just going to go in with my scissors and trim off a little bit of the bulk on the loose seams. Now this next seam is caught, so I can't trim that one. Just a little bit. That helps it go around the curve. The next thing I want to do is to give myself a little snip around the curve, just 1/8 of an inch every 1/2 inch or so. This will help the curve open up. You don't want to snip too far in because you don't want to go past your 1/4 inch seam. And that'll help your curve open up. The tiniest little snips. Now you want to pin the two together. And you have to find the center of each piece. So I take this one and I fold it in half. And I give myself a good crease to find the middle. And I take this one and I fold it in half. And I do the same thing. So I have a nice crease there. And when I open this one up and I put them right sides together, both of the creases fit right inside each other. And I know that's the middle. So I'm going to put a pin in there. And I know that where that seam crosses is where my 1/4 inch mark is, so I'm just going to go past that with the pin. Now I take the other side and I roll it so that these flat edges meet. And I'm going to pin this seam here too. And I weave this pin in because it'll help it so that it doesn't want to spin on me. And then I roll it to the other side, making that fall right along the seam line. And I want to take this one and pin it as well. Now that's going to hold it in place for me. And now if I get my hand right under there in between the two pieces, I can see that these are going to fall right into place along that curve. Now to keep it there, you can also take your glue pen and lift that up and put a little dobs of glue along that curve, right inside the seam line. You don't want to do it on top of your fabric. And then you get in there and you set your seam right along the raw edges. That'll pretty much hold it in place for you. Oh, that one didn't glue. So that will pretty much hold it in place for you while you're going to stitch it. Don't stitch over your pins. I set my needle in first, and then I can pull this pin back, and then as I get closer to the next one I can pull it out. onto that point with the X seam, so I can take out that pin, and I can see that I'm not chopping off my point. Pin out at the end, and there you have it. Let's see how I did. Pretty nice. There we go. So there's my curved seam. Now if I take the papers off the back, that looks very good. And I can actually see how I did. I got right on that line. So now I'm ready to take the papers off and press it. Now that's all ready to press. So now it's time to press them. I've taken the papers off, and I could just hit it with my iron and press it with a dry iron. But what I want to do is give it a nice flat starched curve. So I have this starch pen for precision piecing. It's by Acorn Products. And when you take off the top, this wick in here wicks out the starch that you've loaded in the back of the pen. It comes so that you can unscrew the top and then fill it up with your own starch, or you can buy the Acorn starch that they have. I just dripped it all over the place. So to get it going, you just hit it once and that gets it going, and then what you want to do is put it right in the crease and then hit it with a dry iron. It gives you a nice flat curve. So sweet. Here's one without doing it with the starch pen. And that gives you a flat curve too, but somehow this just seems even better. It feels better, it's smoother, there's not as much of a bump there. You probably can't see it on camera, but I really enjoy using this starch in the crease on a curve. So I have 62 of these to sew and iron, and then I can get on with our next unit in the next video, which will be the flying geese to finish off the border on this quilt.